you're the partner that's still the believer and your partner comes to you and says, hey, some things aren't adding up, like you have to feel like, where have we really been on the same page all along?
You know, they have their like set structure for when they need to pray. One person's just like, I'm not doing that anymore. And so that is a situation where like, wait, what's going on?
Your partner who is staying with the religion, there's need for giving the same respect that you're really asking.
Welcome back to Three-Way After Dark. I am with my good friends Jeremy and brother Derek. How are you guys tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm excited.
I'm incredible. Thank you.
I love that. People go, fine. I'm like, such a, come on. Incredible. It's what we're going for.
Yeah, I love it.
I love that too. First question tonight is one that has been on my mind a lot lately for reasons that, I've got family kind of going through this. It wasn't my question, but I've got people going through this. So I'm curious to see who else in our audience may be going through this or has somebody close to them going through this. And the question is, how do you overcome when one partner is not on the same page with faith? Or maybe you're on the same page and that changes.
Gosh, I've got just so much to say about this. And my name is Jeremy Van Wert. I'm a marriage and family therapist. You can find me at jeremyvanwert.com. This particular subject is really near and dear to my heart because I was raised in the Mormon church and I left the church. And luckily, my father has been very dignified about it, even though I know that it's very hurtful that for him that I'm not a part of that anymore. But it's not always that easy, particularly in a partnership when one person decides, I don't want to be Jewish anymore. I don't want to be an evangelical Christian anymore. I don't want to be a Mormon anymore. And it usually comes after many years of deep soul searching and late night Googling and all of this kind of thing. And the coping can be hard for the partner where their whole life is changing in an instant because they're still very bought into whatever the faith is. And it's one of these spaces where you really see what people are made of. You see how secure they are. Because even in many of the more, I guess the phrase is high demand religions like Jehovah's Witness or Mormonism, there's a lot of pressure to keep people in, and it's really hard for the person who is feeling like they're being left behind. And if the partnership is going to survive, it requires that person who is still in the faith to allow for their partner to evolve and to change and to treat it without the kind of judgment that that person's definitely going to be feeling on the inside. And it's a really difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I kind of feel, and hello, I'm Derek, host of the Culture Pod. I feel like this is a topic that we could talk about for hours. I mean, all of us had faced, leaving a high control religion and kind of reconstructing our lives. And it's hard enough to do that on your own, much less having to also factor in your partner and maybe your children and that whole structure. It's a whole worldview shift. And I think if a partner, like Jeremy said, if you don't have good alignment, if a partner feels like you're abandoning them or your shared future is no longer potentially a thing, it could be very troublesome on how you navigate as your faith is changing. So I think this is a really nuanced topic. Sure, we can go back and forth on kind of what are some good best practices and some ideas on what we possibly can do. But I'm also curious your touch, Jess, before we continue on.
Oh, my first thought was, I left the cult that we were raised in long before I was married. So I had the privilege of sort of forming some of my own thoughts before I was in a marriage to make those decisions. But in listening to, the Culture podcast, how often it comes up that somebody says, I was Googling late at night. I had all these questions that couldn't be answered. And then the distrust that happens with your partner, where they're like, you were thinking something else for how long? When were you going to tell me? And if they don't agree, well, by rights of the confines of the cult, you need to part right away. This is like, I mean, this is borderline abuse. Your partner's no longer in it with you.
Yeah.
So it's really, I mean, I think that would be my concern in navigating something like that. It's so much more than just we're on different pages now with faith. When you're on a high control group, that's not an option. It's just not an option. And then that trust is broken right away. So how do you deal with something like that when, regardless of which side you're on, if you're the partner that's still the believer and your partner comes to you and says, hey, some things aren't adding up, like you have to feel like, where have we really been on the same page all along?
I feel like if a major part of the relationship is structured around the faith, it's going to be
Mhm.
very challenging. That's like
Mhm.
step one. Like, the whole point or a major part of our relationship structure this faith, and
Mhm.
whatever that structure is, we all know that Christian religions have a structure.
Mhm.
God, and then or Christ, and then the congregation, and then man, and then woman, and then children. And if one of those partners, say, is the man, is very dead set on this is the structure that God has given us,
Mhm.
it's a very challenging conversation to start having if you're the woman in that conversation. But I'm curious to what you're thinking, Jeremy.
Yeah, there is. I've worked with a lot of people that are in this space, and depending upon how the religion is structured, it can absolutely very quickly destroy a marriage, even when the person who is leaving is incredibly gracious about it.
Mhm.
What you're having to do is to rebuild what the relationship means and on what ground the relationship is built on, because we don't have, for instance, our Sunday morning ritual anymore where we get dressed up and
Hmm.
we go to church and everything like that. That's changed. Sometimes the person who no longer wants to be associated with the church can go to the church and just sit there for a little bit and support their spouse. Sometimes they just can't because there's too much shunning involved, which is another big part of these kinds of things. So I would say that the way to speak about this kind of thing with your partner is, I support you in your space. I support you in the religion. I understand what it's about. I know how important all of this is and the community and everything. I'm not there anymore. I can't be with it anymore. You are not under any obligation, and it is damaging for you as the person who is leaving to drop a bunch of information on other people's heads. You're immediately going to turn them off. You're immediately going to push people away who are going, wait, number one, where is this coming from? Number two, you're talking crazy stuff. It's already enough for people to have to digest that your relationship has changed with the faith. When you drop, for instance, I've got this encyclopedic knowledge of the history of Mormonism. When you start dropping all of these pieces of information, it's more than people want to process. They want to know, do you still love me? Are we still together? Because they've already got a process. What happens when we die? That's usually one of the foremost things. Are you still going to go to the same place that I'm going to? Your partner who is staying with the religion, they need their space to be able to kind of like adjust themselves. So there's
Mm.
need for giving the same respect that you're really asking for.
Mhm.
I feel like it's like this equation in your brain where you have to talk it over with your partner, and you go, is love like enough anymore now that we don't see the world the same way anymore?
Mhm.
Like you have to have that conversation. Like, can
Mhm.
we overcome this? Like, can we navigate through this together? Because a major piece of our joint puzzle together is now changing.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's like, it's not an easy process. It's going to be something that takes a lot of tough conversations and allow it to be, time to play out and, continue to have these conversations of where it's like you're shaping like a new mold of clay. It's like
Mhm.
how are we going to now shape this new dynamic of our relationship? But it also brings to mind, like, if you're not willing to look at yourself and change this version of yourself, because you're going to be changing yourself to align with this new goal of your partner because they're
Mhm.
changing themselves. Yeah, this this is challenging. Like, I don't know, where are you at, Jess, with this? Like, what would be something?
Yeah, the worldview really hits home. Like it's
Yeah.
really your perspective and your worldview. And I was noting this because I get sucked up into these documentaries so quickly on Netflix. And there's a new one that I started watching called, I think it's called Trust Us. And it's about like, Mormons who are, have multiple wives, and there's a lot of, I've only watched one of these, but I was thinking while I was watching this, like, how on earth could somebody get caught up in this? And then my next thought was like, well, that's how, I mean, I wasn't raised Mormon, we were raised Jehovah's Witness, but very, very, very similar. And this worldview, when you do not have any outside influence, as these folks on the show do not have, it is a lockdown. You don't know anything else. So if that's what you've been surrounded in, grown up in, married in, I can't imagine how the other person would feel, depending on who's making that decision. That's your whole worldview. That's everything you've ever known. And now you're forced to look at the world differently. That's a really big shift.
Well, I think about another layer to it. Like, what if the faith you're changing to doesn't now align with your values?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it could be a friends group that does something maybe not necessarily in your opinion or mind is healthy.
Uh-huh.
It could be, a completely different cultural thing where you're like, I don't resonate with this at all.
Mm-hmm.
I love you as a person and a partner and the person that we've been together with for years. But now the version that you're telling me that you want to be is so far away from, I don't want to make any like political references, but like, you start to follow an ideal and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, like, I don't know if we can navigate through this if this is where you're telling me you want to land.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it could be extremely challenging. Even if you do everything right, you hold space for them, you talk with them, you sit with them, you try to navigate with them, and you continue to see, like, well, either way this is going to go, you're going towards this path. Maybe you want to be in a Satanism, and you're just like, I don't want to be associated with someone that's a Satanist. And it's like, I don't know what kind of work we can do if that's so completely misaligned
Mm-hmm.
with my values and ethics in this world. So I don't know. I'm curious your guys' take on that.
Mm. Yeah, that adds another element to this. What if the Mormon is leaving the Mormon church to become a Scientologist?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And we're not just simply talking about leaving faith and becoming an agnostic or a traditional Christian or something like that. Talking about joining another high demand group, and that adds another layer. That's really, really tough because you will have teachings and ideas that are in direct conflict with where you came from. And I think that at the core of that, there's a need to sit down and go, what exactly are we doing right now? Like,
Uh-huh.
what,
Yeah.
why are we doing this? Like, what is it that we're searching for that we don't think is innately a part of our self, our souls? And actually really tease those things out and do some serious soul searching before going from one high demand group to another high demand group, because that is a lot to ask your partner to deal with.
Well, you guys both have a lot of experience in this space. You, Jeremy, with doing a lot of therapy with couples, especially, and you, Derek, with running the podcast. You have a lot of people on that are experiencing these things. Do you see that there's a particular age group or a particular what's the word for it? Like a common denominator that you see again and again with couples that are going through this?
A lot of the person who is not leaving the organization,
Mm-hmm.
they feel it is a betrayal of their marriage vows.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this a lot with Mormons because you are often Mormons are married in the temple. And
Mm-hmm.
there are certain rights that go along with that certain thing, and you have a high status marriage. And it's like the person had an affair. And so that level of highly charged
Mm-hmm.
has to be dealt with as a part of this very delicate process. I still love you. I'm still your wife. I'm still your husband. And I don't believe this anymore. And I can't sit there and pretend any longer. And so that's a big part of it, is a feeling of betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
And another a part of it is when you're a part of one of these high demand groups, there is this is the only true way to believe in anything. And so how could you possibly fall away from the only truth that there is on the planet? You're so lucky to have had it. And that's a really hard thing for people to come to live with and understand. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes you find, particularly if you have large families involved, which a lot
Mm-hmm.
of faith-based people have large families, you have various relatives that just can't get over it. They don't know what to say to you anymore. And you can feel it when you're around them. And that's unfortunately has to kind of be a part of it because some people won't know how to handle themselves.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think on your
Well,
podcast, Derek, I often hear people say like this, I've reached this point where I'm like finding my authentic self. And that happens at varying ages.
mhm.
But I think that's the common denominator that I hear on your podcast is people just reaching this point of like, I want to be authentic now about who I am or what I believe or whatever things they are now able to do at varying ages.
Yeah, I think there's a breaking point for some people. Some people never get it.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely, their life, they're aligned with how they want it to be, and that's great for them. But for many people, they just go like something seems off. I need to find myself. As you navigate through this journey in life, we're constantly changing, we're constantly evolving, we're taking in new information, new knowledge, we're growing. And if we're not growing with our partner, like say for instance, like if this happens, part of me goes like, you're not having these growth conversations with your partner if it's such a
Uh-huh.
surprise.
Right, right.
Like if it comes out like, what, you're thinking about Scientology? I mean, that's you not talking with your partner of your journey of a deconstruction to some extent, and then like researching Scientology. It should be a constant conversation. Like, what are your thoughts? Oh, that's kind of weird. Yeah, it is kind of weird. And so that's part of it. The other thing I thought of is we're kind of touching on faiths that are really high control or very demanding. And I think this really aligns with like there's a lot of people that are culturally Christian.
Mm-hmm.
They say they're Christian. Yeah, they go on Christmas, Like I don't really feel like this necessarily applies to them.
Mm-hmm.
We're really talking about like our foundation is this
Mm-hmm.
religion. It'd be like Muslims, right? They do their prayer, they have their like set structure for when they need to pray. And then all of a sudden they just like one person's just like, I'm not doing that anymore. Like I'm not gonna lay down the towel and to pray at this specific time. That's like a really hardcore part of their faith and their belief. And so that is a situation where like, wait, what's going on? Like, so I don't really feel like it aligns with someone that's more casually religious and whatever they are, but it's just like your core foundation. You go to church every week. You're a part of it. And that's why it's so tough because you're breaking everything by
Mm-hmm.
deciding that you want to change faith. And that's where I think it's really tough.
Yeah, yeah. No, and it sounds like a big breakdown in communication along the way. And that's really the fault line, right? This breakdown in communication along the way where you're feeling different and we're all expected to grow. Like we're not just going to stay stagnant. We're all growing. And if you're not growing with your partner, that's really concerning.
And don't get me wrong, I think sometimes people actively choose not to tell their partner because
Sure.
there is a level of fear.
Mm-hmm.
They know what this group's all about. And so if they're starting to kind of like, I want to change, they understand, potentially, hey, I got to keep this close for now. So like most of the conversations I have on the Culture Pod, it's pretty nuanced. It's pretty, challenging, but yeah, this is a really interesting topic. Like I don't think there's any one right answer, but I think it always just comes down to just communicating and trying the best you can if it aligns with your values, whatever they decide to change to.
Mm-hmm.
But wouldn't that be the day they go from Jehovah's Witness and they're like, let me now try out Mormonism, you know? And they're like, Mormonism didn't work out. Let me try Scientology. It's like, man, they're just getting the trifecta of things.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Sounds
and
expensive.
yeah, yeah. Maybe just start up Heaven's Gate again. Go from there.
I love what you said, Derek, because this kind of thing never comes easy. And it's
Mm-hmm.
usually that the person goes, I've been wondering about this thing in the history of this faith. Man, I'm just going to Google it. And then you find out something, and then there's like a book that you quietly read and you go, oh my gosh, like, and then it leads you to another question, and then it leads you to another question. There's a phrase in Mormonism called, you just put it on the shelf. You put
Yeah.
those things on the shelf, and then your shelf breaks one day. And it's a preponderance of different things. And there are people within these church walls who just go, okay, I don't believe it, but my family depends upon all of this, so I'm just going to go shake the hands and try to not volunteer for much. But then there's other people that just go, I can't even be around this right now. It's so,
Yeah.
I don't know, so fake. It's so wrong. And to come out to your devout family with this deeply held conviction when they have their own deeply held conviction that is based upon decades and relationships, and in Mormonism, what's called a testimony. That's a deeply emotional belief that what you're doing is morally correct. And so there's a lot of respect involved in this kind of system that you're involved in with a family, with friends, with a community.
Mm-hmm.
And um, it's often easier for you to give respect than to be able to expect that other people are going to reciprocate that with the kind of respect that you're deserving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that hits it. Yeah, that hits for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is one of those topics where it's like, we're respectful of people's time. And so, this podcast is 30 minutes. And this could easily be multiple hours of breaking down, what's going on and maybe what some of the steps are. But me personally, if that person has that moment where they're like, I have to make a decision, which I've been there. You just have to talk it out, and you have to try to be as loving and caring and kind as possible, and go, this is where I want to navigate. This is where I want to move forward. And you're just hopeful that your partner can hold space for you and let you speak. And if like you already have a loving relationship, my hope is that you can navigate through it. But it's very, very challenging.
So, should we give our audience a sneak peek of one of well, I say one, but we typically only get to one question. A sneak peek of our question for next week, because next week we are going to be live. I'm very excited about this. It's going to give our audience an opportunity to jump in, win some prizes, and be part of the conversation. So, Jeremy, you
Love
want to
it.
give us our topic for next week so everybody can jump in?
Yes, absolutely. That
The
topic that I have right
therapist,
on the
the
top of my
therapist.
head is the role of job stress in relationships. There's a lot of people that are getting laid off Sometimes you end up getting fired and you didn't see it coming. There's a lot of this sort of thing. And right now, there's so much of this going on, and people are so over leveraged because everything is so darn expensive. And when you end up your company has a riff, yeah, all of these different kinds of things. I mean, it cuts you to the core of you. And I've worked with plenty of people who are just in the I don't even know what I am anymore space because they got let go from a job that they're not going to get back. Maybe they are of a certain age and demographic that is not hiring desirable. And there's a lot to talk about with that. So yeah, I think it's a good topic.
Oh, I love this topic.
Love
So,
it.
audience, get ready. If you've got some questions, some thoughts, some opinions on this, some real life examples, like join us. There will be some prizes, and there will be the opportunity to jump on and be on camera with us.
I
So,
love it. I look forward to it.
me too. So until next week, we will see you next week, and hopefully we'll have lots of friends join us with lots to say.
All right.
All right. Until next week. Bye, guys. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks.